Not really? Taking shots in this video too? Generic Controlman, the That Goes Moo here, back with another Scott the Waz video, and today we're doing console redesigns, which was the most liked comment on my last Scott the Waz video, which was the Nintendo DS Love at First Touch, I believe, where he absolutely ripped my childhood apart. You can check out my reaction to that video. I'll leave it right out there, also linked down below in the description. I've been doing some Scott the Waz videos just sporadically. I really enjoyed them. I actually learned a lot. I didn't know there was that much stuff about DS. I didn't realize there was, what, 4 different versions of them. I just had the original one, and I loved it. And he was like, yeah, no, that's the only bad one. I'm like, it hurt. I do read all your comments and definitely know what the next Scott the Waz video should be. There's actually like kind of an order of things I should be going based off the story, because it's kind of like the Scott the Waz universe or something. But it's console redesigns. Most of these consoles I will probably have never owned. This video has 6.9 million views, which is probably the best part of my day so far. It's very, very nice number. I hope you have a wonderful day. Shout out to the patrons, because they get all the videos day early. $3 a month get you all my reaction videos day early. 16 videos a week. And I do read all your comments, whether you're a patron or not, whether you're subscribed or not. But I hope you are subscribed to some of his future videos as we approach 100,000 subscribers. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. I don't know if I can make it tiny a little bit better. But let's go ahead and jump into console redesigns.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Oh god, this is gonna sound so mean. I'm sorry if this comes off as negative.
Why?
This redesign fucking reeks.
Nintendo taught me it's okay to be self-conscious about my appearance, since they obviously were with the 3DS after changing it like 12 times. Console redesigns are inevitable. Nothing's perfect the first go around, and redesigns give console manufacturers the chance to reignite.
I wonder if I've had any of these.
Make it with cheaper
Maybe the
parts,
360
or just
Slim.
Make it better stylistically and or functionally.
Still have actually
some
using
console redesigns really
my original Xbox One,
and not only looked better but worked better.
Never had a PlayStation.
Some may have only done one or the other, and some just straight up did neither. So let's take a look at console redesigns throughout history and see whether they were a worthy upgrade or make me vomit. Now, redesigns have been around since the dawn of time, i.e. the late 70s. Some redesigns acted like they were straight up sequels to the original models, like the Fairchild Channel F2 and the Intellivision 2. These being solid upgrades to the originals, albeit with the Intellivision 2 being made much cheaper.
I actually watched a Linus Tech
Tips video about facelifts, most famously being the Atari 2600 Junior, released in 1986. It wasn't officially subtitled the Junior, and for good reasons. That name reeks of, I'm not buying that, I'm too old for it. It was simply a redesigned 2600
under
released at a budget price to lure all those value seekers out there. There were a few other variants of the console released, one with some switches rearranged, and one with an all-black finish, nicknamed the Darth Vader model. Now all these redesigns look fine, but in my opinion it ain't an Atari without the wood grain finish. Redesigns start to get a bit more interesting with the NES. The original model is quite the chubby piece of shit, if I do say so myself. Well. Yes, this is one of the most iconic looking video game systems ever released,
never played
it's a meaty little guy and is crazy prone to hardware failures. I'll bet that if you own the original NES right now, it either has some problems, doesn't work, or has been refurbished or fixed at some point.
It's like an old
After the
German
Super
car.
Nintendo hit the scene, Nintendo put out a redesigned NES, positioning it as a budget gaming system. It takes a few design cues from the Super Nintendo, as it's a top loader, which is what this model is generally referred to as. Now, rumor has it this system was designed as a way to combat complaints from consumers, as people would put their drinks on top of the NES like a coffee table.
You could put it anywhere else.
Over and damage the system. This new one, yeah, I can't confirm. No drinks fit on here. The top loader is the definitive official NES model. It rocks in almost every way. It's way more compact, is much more reliable, and can play stuff like PAL games. But it has one glaring flaw. Oh god, that's gross. Yeah, instead of AV out, this thing only has RF. That's disgusting.
I don't even know what that is.
Instead of the picture looking like this, it'll generally look like this. On top of that, being RF only means this thing is almost completely irrelevant to use on modern TVs. However, you can mod it for AV out. The problem is you definitely need some modding skills or need to spend a pretty penny to have somebody else do it for you. However, various people called Nintendo back then and complained about the lack of AV out on this system. In response, Nintendo offered to officially mod their consoles to have AV out, so there do exist official versions of this system with AV. However, they are incredibly rare. It's just so odd that it was like this straight out of the box.
Zelda,
the Japanese Famicom version of this redesign was literally called the Famicom AV. It included AV out, and it was a big part of the branding. If you're willing to spend a ton of money to not only buy this system, but mod it as well, you might want to consider just picking up the high-end aftermarket NES systems with HDMI, like the AVS from Retro USB or the Analog NT Mini. Similar to
And
the
they can
NES's
make those?
revision,
That's
the
actually
Sega
kinda cool.
Master System 2 was a budget console redesign, but it really doesn't hold a candle to the original release in my opinion. Some Master System games came on cards, which you would insert into a slot in the original model. Hope you weren't planning to do that on your Master System 2. This only plays the cartridge-based games, which, I mean, the majority of games were released on cartridge, so it's
Cars had
deal.
cassettes.
But overall, the original model plays all the games, and the design is just way more appealing to me personally. The 2 just kind of looks awkward and generic. The original isn't stunning by any means, but it has more personality. Sega decided to strike again in the terrifying world of redesigns with the Genesis, getting 3 major revisions. The original Sega Genesis model is
quite
big,
large,
bold, and
looks like a
screams the company
turntable.
who made Sonic Forces loud and proud. The second model feels a bit tamer. I grew up with this model, and overall everything feels a bit more refined.
Scott, me and you were the same age. How did you grow up with that?
I do think the Model 1 has a lot more character. It's just so bold. I do have a soft spot for the Model 2, but the Model 1 just screams what the Genesis was all about. And if we're talking character, well, the Model 3 has that in spades. Yes, the runt of the litter. The Model 3 was actually produced by Majesco under Sega's license, and it's always wildly uncomfortable to me when game consoles are about the same size as the games. This one doesn't work with the Sega CD or 32X add-ons, and was just a tiny, cheap version of the Sega Genesis. I mean, it works, but now I'd say it's really nothing more than a novelty, a collector's piece, really. The SNES got a redesign late in its life. Blam, this thing is irrelevant. I think it's fine, but I don't really see any real reason to use this compared to the original model. Unlike the NES top loader, at least it has AV out. However, that's all it has. The original SNES allowed for loads more different video outputs.
Also, only 2 controllers?
This redesign just feels like it's a downgrade across the board. I think the design is kind of boring and it's functionally worse than the original.
It needs more color.
The PS1 and the PS1. Yes, the original PlayStation's redesign is just called the PS1. And I had this model as a kid. But I didn't know about the LCD screen attachment until way later. My God! I'm personally fine with both of these designs. You can't really go wrong with either of them. The PlayStation brand of consoles
I'm not even sure if I've ever seen one in
carry the
person.
torch of the redesign. Every single one has gotten a facelift, and the first to continue this tradition was the PlayStation 2. This is just one of those before and after ads. Now this is a redesign done right. They literally smashed an entire PS2 into something like 10% of the size of the original.
I don't know about
The first model
10%.
was garbage.
Probably
Look
just
at
half
this
the
thing.
size.
Fell apart with a few swings of a hammer. Now, the PS3
why
was
did you do
interesting
that?
because the
I
systems
remember
got
those commercials,
better,
actually.
well, worse at the same time.
$400.
The original
What happened to
version says,
$50?
I blew $600 to play Ridge Racer 7. This guy had so much useless garbage crammed into it that just made the price skyrocket.
4
Like,
USB
look at all the
ports.
card readers it had. Why do you need these? The PS3 Slim was released as a way to reinvigorate consumer interest in the platform at its lowest point, and it did a great job.
And $300.
The price was affordable, and the design was much more compact and attractive. However, it ditched PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility. I mean, certain varieties of the original model had it, but with the release of the Slim, PS2 disc support was gutted entirely. But at the very least, PS1 games could still be
Because then they
used.
put a PS2
PS3
inside of it
Super
as
Slim,
well.
though? Yeah, this was pointless. Talk about an
Super
odd
Slim?
release. A third console revision is never the most common thing out there.
No.
This just felt like they were cheaping out. There wasn't much wrong with the PS3 Slim, and to just replace it with this wasn't the greatest. I gotta hand it to him though. Can't do this on other consoles. The Xbox 360 had a similar trip down redesign lane.
I guess the original Xbox didn't.
It was terrible. I mean, it just didn't function well. It failed constantly.
Red Ring of Death.
The 360
That's what I grew up with. I had a Slim. My brother had the original.
The 250GB model came with a glossy finish, and I'm pretty happy I cheaped out and got the 4GB model with this beautiful non-fingerprint heavy shell. They redesigned it again to look like the original Xbox One Y. This is another design that just kind of cheaped things up a bit. They removed some ports and it reeks a first Xbox One model. I mean, that's what they were going for. But still,
I had original Xbox. My brother had the white 360. I had the Slim.
You haven't caught on yet. Nintendo really only redesigns
I got a
their
1 and a Series X.
consoles. The N64, GameCube, and Wii U, yeah, those stayed the same throughout their entire life.
I had an N64. I had a GameCube and a Wii.
Perfect for what the
and
Wii was meant to do. The Wii's second release got rid of the stand, GameCube backwards compatibility, and was meant to be laid on its side. That was a worthless redesign. Speaking of worthless, the Wii Mini. This was test released in Canada around late 2012 until it got a wide release just a year later. This took things a step forward and removed internet access. Jesus Christ.
What?
The Wii Mini looks more interesting than the second redesign, but none of these models make a case to be bought compared to the first one. I also think the Mini really missed out on a huge opportunity with the lack of internet access. 2012 was the time streaming boxes really started to hit it big. Popping an HDMI port on the Wii Mini, giving it internet access, and positioning it as
like, that would have been a home run.
Virtual Console and Wii games could have actually been a huge hit.
Yeah.
It did come with a Wii Remote, Nunchuck, and Mario Kart Wii here in
Which
North America.
are probably
for
about the same price as $100,
If you
yeah.
did the math at the time, those three things alone would add up to around $100.
Yep,
So
and that was the whole
Wii Mini
point.
for basically nothing. That didn't stop anybody from not caring about it, though. The PS4 and Xbox One have both been guilty of receiving facelifts, and in the Xbox One's case, it just kept getting better and better. The original Xbox One is fucking terrifying. If Microsoft is capable of releasing a VCR in 2013, who knows what they can do? The system barely had any character.
I'm literally watching this video on one of those from release year.
Now, the original
like release
PS4 in
month.
comparison, ooh la la. This thing isn't perfect. All these nooks and crannies can build up a lot of dust, but the PS4 has a unique design that's still
It's only
fully
used for
functional.
recording.
And then they made
videos,
this.
actually.
The PS4 Slim always felt so
I have a Series
awkward to
X
me.
for
the tiny little sliver at the top
everything
just
else.
feels weird.
Streaming.
The Xbox One's revision, the One S on the other hand, this thing looks sleek. It looks modern. It's everything a redesign should be.
Wasn't it a lot cheaper
because
too?
not only does it look better, but it was upgraded under the hood as well with some 4K support. Now, in terms of the high-end versions of each console, the PS4 Pro. This feels like they were thinking,
I didn't know they came out
how
with
do we
that.
convey to people that this is a more powerful PS4? And then somebody just said, add another sliver. Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of this triple-decker design. I prefer it to the Slim,
sandwich.
but not by much. The Xbox One X, on the other hand, is like a tweaked Xbox One S, and I think it looks lovely. The S has a bit more character with all those holes, but the X still looks really good. Now, just you wait, because we can't possibly skip over the handhelds.
Wait,
the original Game Boy line
Series
got
X not out
slimmer
yet?
and better with the Game Boy Pocket and received a backlight with the
Nope,
Japanese
Series X is, I
exclusive
think,
Game
4
Boy
years
White.
old.
I always considered the Game Boy Color to
Is
be
it?
its own system, but many
I had a
consider
Game
it
Boy
a
Color.
half-step, and it's more of a hardware revision rather than a full-on sequel to the original Game Boy. Either way, it continued where the Game Boy Pocket left off, now with a color screen. The Game Boy Advance is what we call a full-blown sequel,
I had the
and actually
SP,
became
which was
playable with the
amazing.
release of the Game Boy Advance SP.
Yes!
Full backlight, clamshell design,
Yes!
and rechargeable battery make this the definitive Game Boy.
Yes,
With an
it
even
was
better
amazing.
backlight coming in a revised model. And
I
then
had a
things
silver
got effing
one.
puny. The
I
Game
even
Boy
had it
Micro
in high
was
school.
a really cool take on the Game Boy Advance. The problem being, that's all it was. It couldn't play original Game Boy or Game Boy Color, just Game Boy Advance games. The PSP had a fair amount of releases, with the 1000 model being the
I
first
remember
and the 2000
kids
and
would
3000
flex their
models, both
PSP in
being
school.
upgrades, but having pros and cons to each. Some preferred the 2000 screen to the 3000 screen, for example. The PSP Go was a mistake. It was a purely digital console, ahead of its time.
Wasn't there a
definitely,
phone, the
but
Sony
it
Xperia
just
or something?
Did not take off.
That was similar?
At least it wasn't the E1000, which is just like the Wii Mini, stripping a ton of features including Wi-Fi. Thankfully, the PS Vita has a pretty decent redesign, with its second model featuring a slightly lesser screen, but with most features still intact. I've already talked about the DS line before,
that
so
was the
I'll
last
keep it
video.
brief. Oh no, amazing, pretty good, but they got rid of
Really?
the Game Boy Advance
Taking
backwards
shots in this
compatibility, and
video
almost all
too?
exclusive features of this console can be accessed on the 3DS, which can play DS games, so what's the point?
I thought it was safe.
Now the 3DS. The original
I'm
model
hurt.
had a lot of little
Again.
design quirks.
Scott,
The
why?
bottom screen would leave a mark on the top screen, a bunch of unnecessary switches and lights, and the glittery finish. All of this was fixed on the 3DS XL. While it was positioned as more of an
That
alternative
is a
option to
large
the regular
DS.
3DS, it fixed a lot of the little issues with it and made it a more solid system. However, I do have to say, the original 3DS XL feels a lot cheaper than the original 3DS.
90% larger
The
screen.
2DS was a budget version of the 3DS, without the 3D or the clamshell design. There were
Wh-
millions of
why?
people who
Why?
wanted to play one or two specific games
It's a
on
tablet.
the 3DS, and that was about it. And the 2DS helped them do that for a crazy low price. I don't like this one. I know a lot of people actually find the 2DS more comfortable to hold, but not
The
me,
original
sadly.
DS
The new
was great
3DS
to
and
hold.
new 3DS
I had no
XL were
issues.
hardware revisions of the original models.
It was more
improving
comfortable
them
than the
both in
lights
almost
or any of
every
them.
way, offering face tracking 3D, more buttons, and a nipple. I've never been a huge fan of this C-stick here, but I'd rather have it than not at all. The regular new 3DS is beautiful. I love almost everything about this design. Plus, it has interchangeable faceplates. Oh man, I really prefer the bigger
faceplate?
screens of the new 3DS XL. It's a dreadful problem. The new 2DS XL. Nope, that's not a joke. In reviews, a lot
new?
of people
How
claim
new?
this was the definitive 3DS.
They're not still
that
coming out
they
with these.
even play this thing. Like, it's fine, it works, but I think too many people just made a big deal about the top screen looking like a smartphone and saying, wow, this thing is great. It's not my favorite to play on. Why are the speakers down here? Where my palms would be.
Oh,
the new
so they
2DS
covered
XL's
it. I mean,
placement
I always
on the
muted it
3DS line
anyway.
is a bit weird as well. It's for those people who don't want to cheap out
My DS
completely
stayed
with
muted
the regular 2DS,
constantly,
but not spend
24/7.
30 extra bucks for a new 3DS XL. Okay.
Console redesigns can be a real make it or break it moment for
$30
us when
difference?
it comes to actually deciding whether or not to buy a console, and they can also help a console retain relevancy and not fade away like a fad, like the Tamagotchi or leprosy.
Never
Me
had
personally, I have three
either.
major deciding factors on picking up a console redesign or not.
Wedge shaped, it's 2D only, it's yellow.
Yeah, checks out.
That's the only one that he bought. Man, I did not expect to catch more shots in this. How are you gonna attack me again? Limited edition consoles? Now that's cool. I really wanted to get a, Halo Infinite Edition Xbox Series X, and they dropped them out of nowhere, and I wasn't able to get one. It made me the biggest sad, because I always loved the Halo Edition Xbox. I thought they were so cool, because I guess they were different. And I was like, well, I grew up playing Call of Duty, so I couldn't have a Halo Xbox if I never played Halo and was a Call of Duty kid and never played Halo. And then I streamed Halo. I'm like, oh, and I need to get a new console? Oh, let's do it. That's perfect timing. Halo Infinite, it's beautiful. Let's do it. And then, yeah, they did like one release and then that was it. But this video still has 6.9 million views, so that's the good news for the rest of the day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, though. Hopefully I made it 10 a little better. I look forward to reading your comments, and let me know what the next Scott the Wild video should be, then be on the lookout for it. But I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. But until next video, take care, and cue the music.
We were playing